Welcome to your Palmas course. In this lesson, to start us off, we're going to talk a little bit about palmas, what they are, their importance, and also look at the two different kinds of palmas that we use throughout flamenco. So palmas themselves are really important. They're part of the music. We use them in our dance. So we use them to create different rhythms in our dance, often polyrhythmic rhythms. And people often will perform palmas as part of the music. So a full ensemble could include a singer, a guitarist, a dancer, and somebody performing palmas. You can also sometimes have a cajon, which is right over here, but more than the cajon, palmas are part of flamenco and have always been. There are two different kinds of palmas. We call the first kind, which are a little bit softer, palmas sordas. And this is written out for you in this course. So palmas sordas, sordas means muted, and so they're a little bit muted, and they sound like this. The other kind we call palmas claras, or sometimes you'll hear people say palmas fuertes. So claras meaning clear, meaning the clear sound, fuertes meaning strong, okay? So a palma fuerte or a palma clara sounds like this. So you can really clearly hear the difference, the sordas and the claras. I tend to use the term claras, palmas claras, more, so I'll be using that term to refer to these. But just remember that if somebody else calls it fuertes, totally okay, same thing. So what I want to do here is talk about the technique behind palmas. So it's not just like clapping. We actually are doing something very specific to create a really strong sound, either sordas or claras. We want both of those to have their own unique and distinct sound. But we're also holding the body in a position that allows us to do palmas correctly and also that allows us to do palmas for a long time. So it creates stamina. Okay, so we're going to actually start there. The first thing we want to think about, if we're in a chair like I am, I'm going to be sitting, as always in flamenco, at the very edge of our chair with a long, tall torso. Okay, so I'm not back here and slumped down. We want to be just like this. This is the position that we'll be in if you're starting your dance seated, if you're doing footwork seated. You'll see singers seated like this. Okay, so anytime there's a chair involved, the traditional posture, the traditional way to sit is on the edge of that chair. Okay? The second thing to think about is how to hold the arms. We want to make sure that we're holding our arms with our elbows up. Okay, so we don't want to be lazy and be down here and slumped over in our back. We want to have a tall torso, tall back, just like we do when we're standing. And then elbows are up and hands are together, okay? The next thing to think about is when we're doing palmas, we're not doing them with our whole arm. So we're not doing this where everything is moving. If you did that for a long time, it would become very, very tiring. And you'll see if you watch videos or live performances where people are just doing palmas, that's their job, you'll see that they're very compact about the way that they're standing and the way they're performing palmas. And it's a good idea to observe that. So how are they able to do palmas for a 12-minute piece, for example? It's because they're conserving their energy by not doing this, but instead by creating the movement from the elbow in. So the upper arm stays stationary, doesn't move. That is locked in, and we're using the lower arm just like that, okay? The other thing that's important, and this will become more important as we get into the different rhythms, whenever you're not doing a palma, make sure that your hands are together. For example, if I'm doing a palma for tangos, so the style of tangos, I'm going to do the first beat without any palmas. I'm going to actually use my foot. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you notice, on the one, when I'm just using my foot, my hands are together. So it's 1, hands together, 2, 3, 4. They stay together, 2, 3, 4. So we never do this. We never do 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, where I'm holding them open. And I think the reason behind that, and this is always theoretical, but I think it's because we won't be able to get back in time and things speed up and we want to be ready. So it's just maintaining this idea of being prepared and being close. The other hand is close, right? Always together so that we can be right there. The hands are ready to go. And we know that when we're not using our hands and we're using our foot normally as an accent, we know where we are in the compás. So for all those different reasons, okay? Let's look now at how to create the sound of a palma sorda, so the lighter sound of palmas. So what we do is we're going to hold one hand and then the other like this. So we're putting one hand, I have my left hand, on top of my right, between my pointer finger and my thumb. So in this little nook, okay? So I'm here, and I want to make sure that my hands are relaxed. So if I'm tense, I'm not going to get a great sound. If I'm relaxed, you hear a much richer, more bassy sound. The other thing that's super important is to allow there to be a little pocket of air between your palms, between the palms of your hands, okay? So I always describe this as when you go out and as a kid, perhaps you've done this, you've caught a firefly, or perhaps you're catching something else, a ladybug, something that you don't want to squish. And you want to create enough space to allow there to be room for the firefly, right? So it's the same idea. The space might be a little smaller. We might not be quite as big as that. We can relax a little bit. But the center of my palms are not touching, okay? And by doing that and finding your balance, this will come out over time. You should be able to create a nice, rich sound. So the difference, I want you to hear the difference between if I'm too tense and if I'm in the right tension. So too tense would sound like this, kind of slappy, and then finding that right tension is a nice, rich, bassy sound. Okay, so let's try a really simple rhythm doing our palmas sordas. Okay, so we'll get into position, elbows are up, and we're going to find that nice tension, that nice amount of air, pocket of air between our palms, and the rhythm will be just a simple rhythm like this. So I'm doing bum, 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 bum. My foot is creating an accent with my hands, and I'm giving a little bit more oomph on the accent with my palmas so that it sounds a little bit louder than the other beat. Okay, so let's do it together. If you feel like you can't find a rich sound, don't worry. Just it takes practice, and then it will the balance will come to you. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So making sure you're doing this from your elbow to your wrist, and not like this. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Nice and small. Elbows are up, so we're not down here, we're up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Beautiful. All right, so I'm not necessarily keeping my elbows out like this. They're just poised, but they're not droopy and down, okay? So we want to make sure we're not like this, but we're more up here. Okay, let's now look at the claras. So the claras are, again, the louder of the two palmas. It's a harder sound to make, so don't be discouraged if it takes you a little bit longer. Okay, so just keep practicing. So I'm going to be looking at my left hand to start, placing my right hand like this. So my right 3 middle fingers are in this triangle area of my left palm. Okay, so my middle finger of my right hand is on the pad of my pointer finger. I know that's very technical and specific, and over time you won't have to think about that. But to start, it's nice to give yourself something specific like that to ground your palma. What I want to do here is also find a balance in tension, because just like the pocket of air for the sordas, we want to find a pocket of air here. If I'm too tense in my left hand, the hand that I'm going to be striking, then I can't get a sound. Listen. Right? It's very light and it's kind of slappy. If I relax my left hand so that there's a little bit of a bend in my fingers on my left hand, which also creates a boundary for the right hand. The right hand can't slide up and get onto the fingertips, okay? It stays in my palm that way. If I create that relaxation in the left hand, I'm also creating a little pocket of air. And from there, you're able to hear that sound, the sound that we want, okay? I'm going to face you this way now that you've seen the positioning of the hand. It's much easier to do it here than over here. So again, left hand or whichever hand you're striking, nice and relaxed. Other hand in the nook right here. And my right thumb is kind of, it's like a puzzle piece on top of the other thumb, okay? And all of this, again, will just kind of, you'll slide right into that position once you practice enough. The sound is this again. Again, if it's too tense, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like this, right? You hear the difference. If you're feeling like it's too slappy sounding or not loud, relax your left hand or relax the hand that you're striking. Relax those fingers. You want to feel a pocket of air. And you want to feel almost like a suction on this one, where there's a tiny suction when you go in and when you finish your palma, okay? The other thing is if your hand is too erect like that, if it's too straight and tense, what often happens, what I've seen happen a lot with students, is that the hand that's striking, it creeps up onto the fingers or onto the fingertips. And from here, you're not going to get a sound. It really has to be the palm that you're hitting, okay? Because you need to find the pocket of air. So those are some tips. If you're not getting a sound, think about that. Is my hand too tense? Is my other hand creeping up? Where is the pocket of air? I need to relax my fingers, okay? We're going to do the same rhythm as we did with the sordas. So 1, 2, bum, 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 bum. I'll keep my foot on the accents, and let's try it. Relax your left hand or the hand that you're striking, because you can do it either way, and find our position. Remember to execute from here and not with the whole arm. 1, 2, 3, and 1. So you've seen both the sordas and the claras, and now I want to explain when we use which, for what parts of the dance, what parts of the cante, etc. Okay? When we're dancing and the singer is singing, generally speaking, whoever's doing palmas is going to do the sordas. So when the singer is singing and we don't want to be extra loud, we're just keeping the tempo with our sordas. Okay? So with the lighter of the two. Palmas. When there is a remate, so a break in the music, a break in the cante, or a break in the dance, and when there's a footwork section, which again we call the escobilla, then you're going to hear the palmas switch over to claras. The best way is to understand that is to listen to flamenco as much as you can, whether it's through recordings or YouTube videos, or if you can, go into a live performance. Notice when people are switching. The general idea, though, is that when you're doing sordas, the quieter of the palmas, you're keeping the time without being too loud, without interrupting what's happening. When you're doing claras, you're doing that because something in the music or the dance is calling for support that's louder. Okay, so whether you're doing a remate and you're feeling that in the energy comes up, whether through the dance or the cante. You're going to do, for example, in a 12 count, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's your remate. You would switch over to claras. If you're accompanying a dancer who's doing a footwork section, then you would normally do a straight beat of claras in whatever style and whatever rhythm they're working. You can, if you know their escobilla and the rhythms that they're doing, you can play with that and try to sync up a little bit more with what they're doing. So you might have a break here and there where you stop or where you omit a palma or two. But generally speaking, you can see that the palmas in here, that the palmas switch over from sordas to claras and kind of keep a really easy straight beat, which just supports the dancer and kind of keeps everybody in the ensemble together. Okay? So that's an introduction to palmas. We're going to be looking at the different basic 12 counts and 4 counts that we encounter in flamenco and some of the basic and most major styles. And we're going to be looking at how to do those rhythms with music. So we'll practice putting the palmas and the rhythms to what we're hearing in the music and how to react. So just what I was saying before, how to react to the cante, to a remate, to footwork, for example. So how to use the palmas if you were in a live situation or in a performance situation. In terms of getting good at doing palmas sordas or palmas claras, the best way is just practice, just like everything else. And this is nice because with palmas, you don't necessarily have to be anywhere special to practice them or wearing anything special to do them, right? You can do them anywhere. So the more you do them, the more you're going to find your sweet spot for both the sordas and the claras. And just remember, you want to always find that point between too much tension and too little tension, which creates that sweet spot of air, the air pocket between your palms for both kind of palmas, that allows the sound to be rich. Because remember that palmas are music. Palmas are just as important as all the other aspects of flamenco. Okay, there is a hierarchy, of course, between singing being the highest form of flamenco and then going down from there. But in terms of creating music and keeping an ensemble together, the palmas are super important. Okay, so really, really important to get good at. And also because we use palmas in our dance as well. So we want to make sure that as we're dancing and creating percussion with our feet, percussion with our pitos or with our body slaps, we also want to create a strong percussion with our palmas. Okay, so enjoy the rest of the course. Take your time. Get to know these rhythms really, really, really well because they're going to inform all of your choreographies and even drills in flamenco. It's a super important part of flamenco because we're working on not just palmas, but the palmas are the compás. And you know that the compás is everything. Okay? So happy practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.